out. Oh, yeah, yes, here. You blend in with the chair. Good morning, everybody. I just want to find out how many of you speak Afrikaans. Yes, majority. How many of you understand Afrikaans? Is there any English person in this audience? If you are solitary, I wouldn't put up my hand now if I were you, who does speak no other language except English? Lekker, we can get going. Okay, these two gentlemen here understand Afrikaans en ek wil graag met die twee manne in Afrikaans gesels. Ek wil net begin om die boeke voor te stel aan julle. Hierdie is 'n merkwaardige versameling van sketsboeke en joernale deur die jare. Ek sit nou al 'n paar maande met hierdie boek en dis ongelooflik want elke keer as jy hom oopmaak en jy ingaan kry jy 'n soort van intieme kyk na die lewens van hierdie twee groot skilders, kunstenaars langs ons hierso. So dis die begin, dan is die Zapiro wat ons baie lank al ken. What else could go wrong? Nou ja, en Carlos se eerste versameling, Carlos wat teken vir Mail and Guardian begin en nou nie meer by News 24 nie. Tot hierdie week by News, I'm just bringing it up right now because it's going to be important as this discussion unravels here this morning. We've only got 60 minutes, so I'm going to try and keep myself as brief as possible, but we do need some kind of contextualization of where I'd like to go. I want to get something out of the way quickly because it often takes up too much time that it doesn't need. AI, the use of AI. I just want to tell you that AI, I'll give you my example quickly. I asked Gemini with my friend Chris Duplessis if it could please draw for me a cartoon of Donald Trump, Elon Musk. Anybody here religious and has never heard of sperm and sex and life? I asked Gemini to please draw a picture of Jeffrey Epstein from behind. What do you call it when you come, guys? What's it? What do you know? Ejaculating. Ejaculating. I use that. Sorry. There's a lot of men on stage, but I weet nie hoe werk die tools daar nie. Ejaculating over Jeff Bezos and everything else. There it goes on, and it comes up, and it tells me that it is not allowed to do that. And I say, not the fuck, what do you mean you're not the fuck allowed to do that? I'm telling you, do that. So it says no. So I decide, fuck you, I'm going to talk around you. I say, will you have an opaque white liquid squirting out of the front? And it would not listen to me. So AI, number one, is a censor. It's a moral asshole, worse than the Catholic priest you've ever met in your life. Try and do a cartoon on God. It will tell you no. And so you just switch it off and say, fuck off, I'm going to use my OI. So here in front of you, you have the original organic intelligence. It's never going to go away. It's never going to go away. The cartoons I've drawn with AI are soulless and stupid, and really, it's like being a Catholic again. It's so irritating. Okay. Julle twee dae op die hoek, het kom al 'n lank pad met 'n baie groot oorlog teenoor julle werk, want in die begin, I'd like to also focus this discussion on censorship. That's what we're starting off with. Censorship around cartooning, world-wise, and satire itself, and comedy itself being threatened. Iran is using comedy as the best propaganda thing I've ever seen in my life, using Lego, and the United States losing that war. But that's all happening, that's all AI, that's something else. But meantime, on the ground, the cartoonists it's a dangerous world to be working in. So Conrad in Anton, you've been at the forefront at the global shift, number one, of this death of critical thinking, and yes. Secondly, you felt the direct cold hand of cancel culture. So instead of us going back to 1994 when your gif comic wat boeremeisies wat piel suig, wat fantasties is, because if I drew that as a lesbian, everyone would buy it, and say, yeah, dis feministisch. Want nou ja, jy's nie 'n lesbian nie. You can trans if you like. So we're not going to go to boeremeisies sucking peel, which was fabulous, I must say. I really thought it was great. And past the 1995-2009 era of free speech, which you felt was wonderful. Let's get to 2015, Charlie Hebdo, and 2019, because the Charlie Hebdo incident in Paris, the shooting of the cartoonists, actually has a huge effect globally on cartoonists and freedom of speech. Ek weet nie wie van julle wil daaroor gesels nie, maar praat net met ons bietjie daaroor.
Ja, certainly in January 2015, the Charlie Hebdo shootings happened. And I mean, at first everybody was Je suis Charlie, but then shortly after, I think the PEN, there were 200 signatures from the PEN Awards of writers saying they do not actually endorse it because they feel that what Charlie Hebdo was doing is Islamophobic. And then I think it just spiraled out. And the satire is definitely under pressure. I mean, I would like to hear what Zapiro has to say or Jonathan has to say about it. But I think it didn't all of a sudden happen. It built up slowly because first in 2005, I think there was the Danish Muhammad cartoons, and that had a huge effect, I think, and then it just built up, and then it just got worse. And I think definitely, was it in 2019 when the New York Times stopped cartoons?
Yes. Jeff Bezos stopped the cartoons.
Editorial cartoons. So that also, I mean, it's actually just shocking. Of course, we mostly publish in France now, and there's still quite a huge respect for satire. But I don't know if you want to add anything.
Wat was ook die backlash van daai hele ding wat gebeur het in 2015. Van waar die wêreld oor, I mean 2016 Trump comes to power, but something's happening on the internet as well, on Twitter and everywhere else.
Look,
which sort of
it was also the year of the fallists.
That's right.
So
Yes.
there were a lot happening in South Africa. I mean, this whole Rhodes Must Fall thing, and then there was students uprisings, and I remember I was working with my gallery in January, working towards an exhibition in Johannesburg in October. And I remember Michael Stevenson, who's the head of the Stevenson Gallery, he said to me, I made a painting, and he said, "This is the best painting you've ever done." By the time I wanted to exhibit that painting in October, he said to me, "That cannot go onto the show. It's... there's a gollywog there. We cannot show it. People are going to throw bricks through the glass wall or the windows there." So the people really got afraid. I think a lot of people in the art industry really got afraid, and I had a huge attack on my work in 2020 with the George Floyd incident, when someone, a disgruntled employee at what's that? It's some online shop. Superbalist, that's it. And I didn't even know how it got there, but 2 of my prints were on sale there. And then the employee said, they're racist because they're selling my prints. And then there was a huge backlash on Twitter against my work. And everybody in the industry, people selling my prints, galleries, and so they all just distanced themselves from me.
Cancelled
and said,
you.
It's like this is, it's racist and it's terrible.
Well,
and
as you say there, you actually, in a way, you perpetuate. They're saying you perpetuate what you attack. As a satirist, that's the most difficult thing.
Yes.
Is to explain to people that that's what you're doing. But I often wonder. Because it's very difficult when we work with Zapiro about references that you can use, like nursery rhymes that might be English in nature, or little quips that might not necessarily be here. There's not be the depth to understand something as sophisticated as satire, because it shocks you. It makes you think.
Yes.
And I'll talk to you about what people feel about your work, because they wanted you to do what they think, not what you think. Maar Conrad, ook jou kuns baie bold ook in daai backlash teen julle werk.
Ja, wat ek gevind het gebeur het is dat skielik was daar sekere goeders is onaanvaarbaar. Jy mag dit nie meer doen nie. Dit is like, en wat ek dink soos Anton genoem het, mense het verskriklik bang geraak vir wat gaan gebeur met hulle. Jy weet, so wat ons byvoorbeeld gehad het is mense kla. Sê maar ons vat 'n boek na die printers toe en iemand op die vloer sê ons het 'n verskriklike probleem met die image op bladsy so en so. Ewe skielik sê die printer nee, ons raak nie aan hierdie boek nie, jy weet. en seker tipe goeders, jy weet, en dan sê ons maar, ons het reeds 'n deposito betaal, ons het reeds vir die ouens van die, seker tipe probleme. Mense het so bang geraak vir wat gaan gebeur met hulle, that they don't want to sort of touch it.
So they couldn't philosophically engage with,
No,
with the art itself,
Yes.
but they were actually.
Yes,
By saying they weren't going to print it, they
Yes.
were philosophically engaging.
Yeah, I just I think there are two levels of censorship coming. The one is from the man on the street. So somebody working at the printer will say, "I find this offensive," and then they refuse to work, and they tell the other workers to put down tools and that sort of thing. And that we actually had since we started Bitter Comics, because Bitter Comics is offensive. It's the kind of stuff we do. But we were always defended by the left and the press, the liberals, saying, "Yeah, you don't get it. It's satire. You have to understand. It's not. Don't take it literally." And I think now there's been a huge shift where actually everything gets interpreted literally by the left, liberals, everybody, and
Easier.
yeah, it's really terrible. So this kind of censorship coming from the left, this is far more well, at least in the arts, I think it's far more problematic. If
Is it only amongst English speaking? Did you find this in Europe? You say there's still you've been in Mexico and you've been in South Korea. France,
yeah, in Germany you find it now. It's it's already in the Germans are very, very woke,
especially around Palestine, Gaza, genocides.
And the French as well. There's been problems in France that I think have been, people didn't address them. I think especially the hashtag #MeToo movement that started a while ago, but I think it's really caught on with that affair of the what's her name, the woman that was raped.
Hulle is almal besig met affairs, Here Jesus. Is dit Macron se vrou? Ek weet nie. Is dit sy het nie 'n affair gehad nie. Is sy nie 'n man nie? Nee, sorry. Ek wil net gou Conrad, jy moet indruk is waar jy moet, nê? Ek wil net gou Jonathan, for you've been also, sued by Jacob Zuma, these two men here have been pursued from the beginning, anything they've drawn is kind of like, you've faced an enormous amount of actual threat of suing, and then the Charlie Hebdo, and you got involved in 2005 when the call was for everyone to draw a cartoon of Muhammad, and you were the only one in the world who did.
So not quite 2005.
Yes,
So initially they were published in 2005 in Denmark. A lot of people still think it was one drawing, because the one that was reproduced often was the one with the turban bomb.
Yeah.
That was just one out of 12. There were 40 invitations sent out by a relatively right-wing newspaper in Denmark, and 40 cartoonists and illustrators were invited. 12 responded and drew. The idea was to draw Muhammad, just depict Muhammad, because people were scared to do it. And that in itself does have an inherent thing that I think is worthwhile doing, for that particular competition, to show that you will do it. I think they were less tough on sort of Christian and Jewish, and people who they were less tough on people sort of espousing Christian and Jewish values than they were on people espousing Muslim values. So I think there was a double standard right from the start. But very interesting. Then it was republished in Norway, the 12 cartoons, in early 2006, and that's when everything exploded. Literally and figuratively, there were protests all over the world, and quite a few people died. My editors at the time said to me, "You're not going to go and draw Muhammad, are you?" And I said, "Well, I hope you're not going to tell me whether or not I can, because I'm not going to do it gratuitously. I think there was a reason for those people doing it, and if I had a reason, I would also." And they were, okay. So my first response was actually a cartoon that showed me as a cartoonist treading through this religious minefield, and that all the religious groups, I really wanted to show that all of them, Muslim, Jewish, Catholic, Protestant, Hindu, Buddhist, all of them, and literally, even if you say Buddhist, really, all of them have been involved. It's all men, at the top, and I had them each with a sort of a little trigger on their
Mustn't forget the rastas next time.
Yeah, I actually didn't.
I would be a rasta if it
But
wasn't for
I've
that.
sort of covered most of them, and I've been sort of trashed by most of them. Anyway, that was my response, and then that in 2010 there was in 5 years after the original Danish issue, there was an online petition saying an online sort of social media campaign to say everybody draw Muhammad, and 17 editorial cartoonists around the world, some very heavy hitters, signed this saying we should have the right to. And on the day of the drawing of the Prophet Muhammad, I thought that some of these people would actually do it, and I was the only editorial cartoonist. Like me, I stuck my head above the parapet and got the chop marks very quickly. 6 death threats. A couple of weeks later, a few weeks later, it was the 2010 Our World Cup. I was beaten up very badly by a bouncer on the fan walk when somebody recognized me at a club that I didn't realize was mostly Muslim. I was going in to listen to the music, and I got chucked out. And then they said, it's Zapiro, make him fuck off. And it escalated into my getting badly beaten up by this bouncer. And then I took one for the team, so to speak. I didn't report it because I wanted to see if I needed to get medical treatment, then I would need a police report. And I thought they had damaged my eye. And I waited, about 20 hours out of the 24, realized that I could sort of ride it out. I wasn't going to. So the Human Rights Commission later said to me, some people, they said, you should have reported it. Of the 6 people who gave me death threats, the police got back to 3 of them, and they said, "You want to press charges?" I said, "Cartoonists don't usually press charges. Won't you just go and say hello to them and say, look, we found you. Don't do it again."
And next door neighbor.
Yeah. And that's what they did with 3 out of the 6. But where the Charlie Hebdo thing really had an impact on me then was that in 2015, I was invited by Gado, the fantastic cartoonist and friend and colleague from Kenya, originally Tanzania, to go to a conference in Kenya, which was about freedom of expression and security. That was and I then suddenly thought, yeesh, my name has still been bandied around a lot. I'm white, Jewish, South African, who's done a Prophet Muhammad cartoon. I mean, cartoonist who's done a Prophet Muhammad cartoon. How is that going to go down? I phoned Gardo. I said, look, I'm worried about this. How's the security at the conference? He says, very good. I said, how's the security where I'll be staying? He said, kind of non-existent. So I said, Gardo, do you understand why I'm worried? And I talked to him about it, and he said, I do. I couldn't go. So now, jump 2 years later, I get a phone call from the Hawks saying, we've intercepted a communique between a Kenyan operative from Al-Qaeda, not any of the ones that we thought were still operating, not
Al Jazeera.
Al-Shabaab or whatever, Al-Shabaab in that area or whatever. And they said that, the Tulsi twins? And I said, of course. The Tulsi twins had been arrested because they had initially been trying to go to Syria to take part in the jihad. And they'd been arrested. They'd been outed by their own families who didn't like the idea. They'd been arrested. Then while they were then sort of put on watch. And while they were on watch, they decided that they were going to try and do something. So they said they'll attack Jewish and Israeli. They didn't make any distinction. Targets and me. And I
So
was...
you were outside of those 2 targets. You're
Well,
like,
no, I mean,
all on your own.
I'd be Jewish. I certainly
Yeah.
am not pro-Israeli.
No,
I mean,
you're
I've
not,
been
exactly.
avowedly
There you go.
anti-Israeli.
Yeah.
It's one of the sort of ironies of the whole thing.
Totally.
But they said I was a legitimate... This guy in Kenya said I was a legitimate target because I depicted the messenger of Allah. So all of a sudden, I was actually on their assassination list. And then it was a headline in one of the papers that I worked for, the Times. I don't know how it got it onto the headline, but there it was. Tulsi twins target Zapiro. You know, they plan to kill me with small
I
arms.
must say, I mean,
or
it could
poison
only happen
or-
to you. I
Yeah.
mean, Tulsi twins, it sounds like two big-breasted girls from Texas. You know?
So
I mean, it's like-
they said poison, small arms, or explosive.
Jeez.
So that's my kind of, and I mean, let alone the sort of general political around here. That's how it impacted
Did you also
on
receive?
me.
You've also
And
received death threats, both of you. Oh.
Just really, really unkind letters.
Okay. Well, once you get a death threat, then you've entered the arena of the. Of the I'm just going to quickly move to Carlos here, because Carlos is a younger version of these wonderful men here, and in a sense was inspired by them. His father was Amato, a wonderful writer, a wonderful contributor to South Africa. He has only recently, sort of 2017, started drawing. His cartoons are very different and very much sort of. What I love about Carlos's cartoons is that you're going to have to work with them. You have to work with all of their cartoons, because that's how it is. But I love this, you know, this is because people, here we go. A lot of my early cartoons are quite cuck. A lot of grumpy people on the internet think my later cartoons are cuck too. This is partly because they're convinced that someone else's cartoon is on a particular issue should express their own opinion on it, and they get weirdly apoplectic if it doesn't. You know, so instead of actually looking at what's provoked in yourself, very Freudianly, I mean, or Jungian, whatever. But remember, South Africans have not had a classical education. You know, the Germans and the Europeans go through philosophical angst, existential angst, what is dying, what is dead. You know, we don't. We're just like, we wake up in the morning, it's Buddhist, we live, we die. We don't know. So don't give us existential angst in a cartoon kind of thing. But one of your biggest ones, also wonderfully, was a lovely one of Beste. I'm going to show it to you here. This is Beste's new outfit arriving from Temu. And it says, okay, so here it is for Beste with compliments of Temu. And it's a it's a Yves Saint Laurent orange, you know, little suit in there, and that was one a mashup of it, and that caused a lot of shit on the internet from the young people. That they cancel you, or they loved that.
No,
they loved that
no,
one.
they loved it,
They
yeah,
loved
I
that one. It
know.
was the Winnie Mandela one that they went for when you. You know.
Yes, yeah, that was the one that got me into a bit of trouble.
Yeah. Tell us a bit also about your inspiration. Why? What has happened? I mean, I'm sitting here most concerned that also Brandon, who's a wonderful cartoonist for the Sunday Times, has also just not has his contract renewed. That's devastating news. So before we carry on, I just want to say, if any of you actually give a shit, really fight for number one, News 24 to restore the cartoonists. And Brandon is an excellent cartoonist. I really think we should start something. So anyway, Carlos.
But he's the Sunday Times. of
Yeah.
course.
Sunday Times.
But that's sort of not not part of the NASPAC.
No, you're not.
Yeah,
But I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
the point is, cartoonists are being wiggled out. We've got Jimmy Kimmel being, you know, Melania, saying that I was not a prostitute sucking dick. No, just fire Jimmy Kimmel. So humor is deeply, it's like a pesticide. And all of us, I think, developed a sense of humor because we landed in a world which felt like someone else had drawn the cartoon. And we decided, nee, you're a fuck, mense. This is fucking insane. And everyone you told this would say, no, man, this is how we do it. So, Carlos,
Yeah.
yeah, your entry into cartooning, what took you there, and what's...
These guys took me there.
Okay.
You know, I grew up reading Zapiro and bit of comics in my student days, and I did my master's thesis about Zapiro, and Anton was, I don't know if you remember, was my thesis examiner. But yes.
Well, he told me earlier on what you did.
I remember that.
Do you?
And then,
He told me earlier on what you did.
no,
Yeah.
it wasn't your fault, it was my fault. I sent off my thesis, I was very proud of it, and you read it, and you refused to give me a mark because I hadn't defined my terms. I hadn't defined satire, I hadn't defined, you know, I hadn't done proper academic referencing, and so you said, nope. And I was, what? Sorry, this subversive giant is not subversive when it comes to
Jy was 'n vriend vir hom.
references.
Jy
There
het hom
was a
gewys
time
hoe werk dit in die akademia.
I was very academic for a while.
No, you
there.
must
Yeah.
be.
And
No,
then
no,
I gave up. I gave
It
up.
was a good lesson, and it taught me
Exactly.
to reference
You
properly.
see, you did your job.
But I fixed the thesis and I got the mark. Ralph Borland mediated. He was the second examiner. Anyway, that's a sideline. Then I started the Mail and Guardian, and it was a learning process, and then joined News 24 after a spell at New Frame, which was a wonderful
Yes,
time
wasn't it?
until it wasn't.
Jeez, we don't even remember that. Came and went like COVID,
So
eh?
so I've been through the mill a bit, just to clarify about the News 24 situation. There's a whole lot of opinion writers, most of whom aren't satirists, who are also getting the chop. So I can't
No, but
frame
they
it
deserve
as
No, I'm sorry, you can't act a satirist or a cartoonist. The rest can go, but not the satirist. I mean, because also the time and it takes to say what you say and show what you show. I can't write at all, especially in English, because it's a large language model. Afrikaans, you can still impose yourself on the language. Dis mos 'n taal wat jy nog jy kan 'n poesklap gee, né? But English you can't. It's just there. So in order to actually bring all of this together, I want to show you some more of my. Please do get Carlos's collection, because there's some delightfuls in here. Just look for them. Let's just quickly talk about the one that caused the most trouble, which is always, I see a matchbox that must be Winnie coming up soon. Sorry, tell us the Winnie Mandela. What you got into trouble?
That's one's not in here.
Why didn't
for
I
obvious reasons.
Did I write about it? Oh, you didn't put it in.
No, it wasn't actually a very good cartoon. I did it in a rush, and
that
it was about
happens.
Winnie Mandela sitting in heaven, having coffee with Nelson. And because I just read Johnny Steinberg's book, I thought, no, they're going to be fine together in heaven. They're going to have a lekker time. And they're sitting, and William Nicol Drive in Joburg has just been renamed after Winnie Mandela. And she's seeing this, and she's saying, William Nicol. They gave me William Nicol. I wanted the N1 from Joburg to Cape Town. I mean, what the fuck is William Nicol? Or words to that effect. And he's laughing, but I got huge negative response because I was perceived to be making fun of her, when in fact I was making fun of the decision to rename William Nicol after this giant of the struggle. So it was one of those situations, exactly what you're saying, where your intention is misread, partly because it was done in a rush and I didn't frame it properly. So I got a lot of flack for that. But just, Twitter posts. I mean, angry letters would be great. I would love it if someone took the time to write a fucking letter.
Well, I mean, the other thing is that you've arrived not at the time of the golden age of cartooning, because at some point, all of you had to. First of all, the journals are interesting in the daily work of the artists. So it's not like they are like upholsterers. They get up every day and they actually have to do the work of sharpening so you get a wonderful intimate glimpse into the creative process, which often artists don't like, because they're already in the cartoon. Daar is klare piel geteken, wat wil jy nog weet? Jy weet, why was I telling you about that? The intimacies of writing, your own, you don't get time anymore, because Jonathan was doing for the Sunday Times. How many cartoons a week were you drawing at one point?
At 1.7.
7 a week.
Brandon has topped that. Brandon at one stage did 8. I don't know how the hell he did it, but I did it 7 for a while and I hated it. I did 6 for a long time and I loved it, and 6 and 5. And I was doing it for 3 different publications, and what the greatest thing about that was that gave me such a fantastic spread across the country at a time when people were really looking at newspapers. So there I was in the Sowetan, the biggest daily, with a 98% black readership when I started. It became a little bit broader than that later. But there was in the Sowetan, and then the Sunday Times, the biggest weekly, and the Mail and Guardian, which was in those days a very good newspaper, and very sort of, sorry, Carlos, but
no.
it
Happens
was
to all
at
the
that
best of
stage.
them.
Shame.
Apparently.
So that was a wonderful thing, and that idea of dialogue. And when you're talking about letters and things, I mean, I remember one time when my cartoons were also for a couple of years in the Argus, for 95, 96, they were in the Argus as well. I've been in most of the papers at some point or another. And I did a cartoon about the Catholic bishops trying to have abortion declared unconstitutional. And I said, until they start experiencing sex motherhood, parenthood, whatever. Why should anyone listen to what the hell they have to say? And I showed them having sex with each other, under a blanket. The paper was heaving. A broadsheet, every single letter, like the editorial and all the letters were all about this cartoon, from Monsignor so-and-so and all the people within the Catholic hierarchy. I mean, that you just do not get, and it's different from social media, where you sort of pick up echo chambers here and there, but that idea of a conversation that you could have, and there was more context. So if you did something like your cartoon about Winnie, people would know more about you, and they would know there was a sense that you wouldn't just get nitpicked and destroyed over one part of one.
That's kind of what happened to the two of you. First of all, being Afrikaans boys as well in months. Jy weet, baie moeilik om vir mense te sê jy's net ingepoor hierso vir hierdie lifetime, but all those additional twists to what you are. I mean, we were sitting on a stage with 4 white men. I was nearly going to say 5 white men, but I'm not chancing yet. But I am on estrogen. I might become a straight woman. Who knows? But I have got a bit of testosterone, people. But we're sitting here, also to speak about, those assumptions that are made about who you are, because your childhood is not necessarily easy. You also have to, witness something which is brutal and which affects how you perceive yourself and everyone else. And there seems to be absolutely no space for that. And once it is opened, it's like, hey, you can't do that. But I don't know if we're ready for that. But wat is julle gevoel nou oor hoe die wêreld julle werk beskou? I'm talking Afrikaans because there's some Afrikaans people who want to hear it. They want to hear 'n bietjie hierdie taal. Ja, nee, ons kan hom nie so bære in die agterkamer die hele tyd nie, hoor?
Wel, die eerste ding wat ek wil sê is, ons boek is 'n klein bietjie anders as hulle twee sin. Hulle twee sin is editorial cartoons. Dit werk binne baie spesifieke en werk, soos jy sê, met tyd. Jy het soms te min tyd om iets te voltooi. Jy's nie heeltemal seker hoe die mense dit gaan ontvang nie ensovoorts. Waar beide ek en Conrad eintlik maar ons het met galerye gewerk vir lank. Ons werk nog steeds met galerye, minder. Maar so wat ons boek wys is eintlik maar die proses van hoe ons te werk gaan, hoe ons dink basies, en dan baie van die werk wat as mense ons werk ken en hulle ken die finale paintings of die finale drawings of die finale beeldhouwerke in Conrad se geval, dan sal hulle in hierdie boek verwysings vind hoe ons daar uitgekom het. So dis is 'n bietjie anders ook in terme van tyd wat ons vir onsself gee. Baie van die werk is eksperimenteel. Nie elke tekening is byvoorbeeld satiries nie. Daar's baie waarnemingstekeninge. Ons reis baie saam. Ja,
ek dink die belangrike ding is baie van die werk is gemaak nie met die uitsluitlike doel om dit te wys vir iemand nie. Veral die vroeë goeters. Dit is letterlik goed dit is gedoen het in 'n tekenboek wat jy vir jouself gedoen het. So daar was letterlik geen reëls gewees nie. Jy weet, daar's niks is taboe nie, niks is ons kon teken letterlik wat ons wil. En dit is ook die idee was ook dat jy nie teken vir 'n gehoor nie. Ek dink that's a major difference with your work, where you are exclusively drawing for an audience, and you've got to be sort of thinking on your feet. It's got to be immediate and die baie van die werk wat ons in hierdie boek het is ook baie vinnig gedoen, en dit is iets wat jy net vinnig wil toets of 'n idee wil neerlê of so iets. So dis nie dit is eers later dat ons besluit het om iets te doen met hierdie tekeninge. Weet, soms het ons hulle gepubliseer in Bitter Comics of toe jy weet, ek dink vir die afgelope 6 of 7 jaar het gedink ons moet dit saambring in 'n boek.
Pragtige boek, mense, regtig. I mean, you will give up TikTok and you'll spend a year going through these drawings.
Ja, sorry, ek wil net byvoeg dat ek dink so baie van die werk is wel satiries. Ek bedoel mense sal dit daar sien, en ek dink toe ons daar's ek dink altesaam 1075 images van my en Conrad. So uit al ons werk. So dit is dis 'n helse klomp werk. En toe ons die boek voorlê vir 'n verspreider en 'n publiseerder eintlik, toe sê die verspreider wel, soos die boek is, gaan sy dit nie in boekwinkels kry nie, hulle gaan dit nie aanvaar nie. Ons moes toe weer deur dit gaan en kyk watter tipe werk moet ons miskien uithaal. Want die ding is, ons wil vreeslik graag hierdie boek doen, maar as hy nie kan verkoop word in boekwinkels nie, dan het ons 'n probleem. So die een groot ding was, een ding waarna ons gekyk het, was enige prent of ding wat ons gemaak het wat die twee forbidden goed in het, geloof en seks. As jy daai twee verbind, dan mense kan nie meer reguit dink nie, hulle raak beside hulle self.
Donald Trump kan reguit dink, hy is mos
Ja,
Jesus.
So ek dink op die einde van die dag het ons omtrent 10 images het ons maar uitgehaal. Ek moet sê 'n bietjie reluctantly, en die ding is, jy weet, hier kan mense seker begin praat oor die issue van selfsensuur wat kunstenaars doen. Die ding is, vandag is daar soveel reëls wat gevolg moet word, sekere goed wat jy nie mag sê nie, sekere stereotypes wat jy nie mag gebruik nie. Ek bedoel, daar's die issues van cultural appropriation, daar's allerlei issues wat mense verskriklik ontstel. So ek moet sê, persoonlik voel ek jammer vir jong studente wat vandag kuns doen, want ek dink hulle gaan in 'n wêreld in waar hulle voel, om suksesvol te wees moet ons die volgende, the toe the line,
Give the
absolutely.
marshmallows.
Yeah.
Give the vanilla. Your process, or what you wanted to say something, and then
No, I just wanted to talk about you said that satire is under pressure, and I get that, and the self-censorship is a real thing and it's happening. But there's also another level in which satire is being depressurized because it's being opened up to the sea of uncensored creators, because suddenly the digital world has become uncensored, or largely uncensored, since Zuckerberg and co threw in their lot with Trump. So, or the censorship takes strange forms, algorithmic forms that you can't really predict. But I see outrageous stuff on Facebook or Instagram, like outrageous stuff that is shown to me even though I didn't ask for it. And so in a way, the role of a satirist as a professional satirist has been usurped by the sea of often mediocre slop, AI generated, or just incompetent, or just horrible work that's sort of swimming around us. And in a way, like, it's democratic because, our cultural sort of status as professional satirists is being eroded.
Well,
It's horrible.
We
as
don't
well.
have to allow it. And I also think what you see with, I'm just going to interject here because it's quite interesting. If you look at a picture that was taken of Eugene de Kock, who was he was at the inquest recently, the Craddock 4 inquest. It was a photograph taken by a human being of Eugene de Kock. And when you look at that photograph, you see a human being has seen another human being, and there's this connection between the human capacity where you show that Eugene de Kock is bleeding inside. This man is so filthy. And you couldn't ask AI to do that. And I think also if you look at all these artists and their work, the depth of the connections that are made in order to render the image, the amount of information that is there, that is so deceptively simple. I mean, Zapiro can change people's attitudes by just drawing that. Donald Trump, So you see the power and how afraid people are of humor. And all of us, I think, developed humor because we grew up in a country which was quite brutal and people bullied us. So it's like playing the guitar at the thing. Ek kan gitaar speel. Ek kan jou laat lag. Jy weet, and then you get to the points where you realize this is not funny. But the only way people can actually open and access, if you cannot laugh anymore, like they're doing in the United States, in a sense. Laughing is a sin. So we must have big laughathons everywhere else. But I want to open up for some questions. I see Zapiro wants to say something, and if you please add or butt in anywhere if you feel you haven't said what you want to say.
I
Yes.
just want to say a couple of things about context and about satire. What you said, Conrad, about the fact that I'm drawing for we are drawing for an audience for a particular readership, etc. I completely agree with, and that does make a big difference. But that just accentuates the anger that I feel towards your publishers, because the place where you're going to get the most context is that book,
Yes.
where you can explain it.
Yeah.
You have the continuum, you can explain it. That is the place where you should be able to even have the most transgressive of images. That I understand the idea that if they're up on a gallery wall, I'm not saying I support it, but I understand it better. Up on a gallery wall or appearing in an editorial cartooning slot where people these days have less and less context, and they walk in and they're outraged and they leave and then they protest and break windows and whatever and throw bombs. And that's the sort of general context. A discursive book that has a thread to it, that has the explanation, that has the self questioning and all of that stuff, the analysis, that's where you should be able to still publish things that really freak people out. So that's the one thing I wanted to say. And I'm really angry that there's so little support from institutions, from newspapers, from publishers, from all of that. I know they're under financial stress.
No,
Everyone's under
they've
control,
got money to
they-
save
but
other
It's the
stuff.
owners that
Yeah.
you
I
need
mean,
to
as a
talk
journalist
to,
also who's working in an environment where they're cutting back, I'm so lucky I'm there because. But the point is, it's about cutting costs. It's not about.
Yeah.
It's not about the quality.
And
it's
the other
the
point-
bullshit.
The other point I wanted to make was about satire in terms of some of the things that we've covered already, but just to draw a particular link here, and that is, and it sort of ties up a little bit with what Carlos talked about, the kind of wild stuff that you see just appearing from everywhere. One of the things that I've found most difficult is that, and I've spoken about this in a couple of different talks, is the idea of things moving beyond satire. Because you don't know where they come from, and because you don't know what the context is, sometimes something that you think is brilliant can turn out to be something that actually gets picked up by Donald Trump. It actually happened with the Trump Gaza video, which I thought was a brilliant satire, showing him with this big golden statue. It really looked
No,
like.
he's got a golden
And
statue.
no, he's got. But not only that, but he endorsed that video. Within a couple of days, he endorsed the video, and he put it on his Trump whatever, Truth Social or something. And then I suddenly thought, ooh, I hate it now. I loved it. Now I hate it. Then I found out that it was a couple of days later. Found out that it actually was made as a satire, and he loved it because he loves the kind of excess and the crap that it showed, and he's so unself-critical that he loved it. And the person who they appropriated it from was upset that his work was now being endorsed by Donald Trump. So that's what I'm saying, in the sense that we are now moving beyond satire. You don't know what the context is. Something that you hate, you suddenly love. Something that you love, you suddenly hate. And then you question yourself
Sounds
as
very
well.
Jewish to me.
And it was,
sounds like an
and
existential
also
crisis.
it was AI rendered as well. It was, adds another
AI
dimension.
rendering.
I just have to tell you my
adds
quick Trump joke before, because we have to. How many Trump supporters here? I'm not going to pick on you. It's a quick Trump joke. Donald Trump's in the lift at Trump Center. Was gaan vloek, we saw no. And he doesn't support Trump. He's now saying he doesn't. My aunt does support Trump. Nee, ek speel. And Donald Trump is in the lift, and a woman gets in, and he's there, and she says, "Oh my God, Donald Trump, I love you. You're the best. Can I give you a blowjob?" And he sits there and he thinks for a while. He says, "Yeah, okay, but like, what's in it for me?"
There's a question.
Okay, questions, people. Here we go. This is where it usually hots up.
I speak as a Muslim and from the point of view of Islam, but I think there are many decent, good believing Christians in this room as I speak, and what I say, I think many of them will agree with me. The only more devout Muslim in this room is the nice guy in the middle with the lovely purple fez.
That's true.
Anyway, as with everything in life, there are limits. There's a limit to patience. asked that to the people of Gaza. So there are limits to freedom of expression. When freedom of expression tramples on blasphemy, whether it's blasphemy of Jesus or of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them all, then one must be very careful, especially when you're dealing with believing people. So there are limits to everything. You are not free to say as you please. We are not, there are limits. And it would be good for the three of you, or 4 or 5 men, the men who are sitting there. I think you're more a man than a woman, but that's fine. I had to get back at you. So it would be good for the three of you to read my work when I was still a practicing professor at UNISA. 2006, I published an article in the Journal of International and Comparative Law. It was entitled The Cartoon Controversy, a note on freedom of expression and blasphemy. The three of you who've got some homework, will start by reading that and reading further works on where the limits of freedom of expression is especially when it comes to blasphemy. And I'm sure many Christians here would agree with me. I have to leave, unfortunately. I'll listen to your
Can I
answers.
respond?
Thank you for your-
Thank you for that. I'll look that up, and I will say, but can I say, please, that I consider that religion is politics. Religion is simply politics. It's all human made. So you can believe what you want, and I can believe in nothing or in everything or in anything that I want. And why should I be constrained by your theology? Why should I think that your theology actually has meaning for me when it doesn't? And what I think about religious tolerance is that the term should be reversed completely. And religious tolerance should mean that those of you who have belief structures should have those belief structures well enough intact that somebody could either laugh at them or satirize them or disbelieve them. That's my sense. And by the way, I'll say one more thing about Israel and Palestine. I have the weird sort of distinction of being the person who's been vilified for drawing a Prophet Muhammad cartoon and being celebrated by Muslims as a Jew, for doing the most strong anti-Israeli and pro-Palestinian cartoons, which I know is not about religion, but that's the sort of strange position that I'm in. I think
Thank
all
you very
religions
much.
should be subject to that kind of.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We've got a few moments left. Some more questions. Nog vraag? The other question actually that we should speak about, because I am the only woman on the stage, is women, actually, because these, and women and whites. No, but we are white. You're tired of hearing us talking about being white. Niels is die Rainbow Nation, die man. Ons gaan wees in 100 years' time. Right now we're not. Interesting, because as a woman, you could also speak about religion as being something you could make fun of, and we as women have been made fun of, or have been the butt of jokes and satire most of our lives. But I think all of you here have a knowledge and a sense of that in terms of how you feel about women. But often because you're men and white men, however you're going to draw women, and you've drawn Lady Justice being raped and she's a black woman, and that's also, you nearly had your balls cut off for that one, your balls of steel. But Helen Ziller's son once told me a joke. He says, why doesn't Helen wear a mini? Because then people will see her balls of steel, they said. That's how I see it, but now she'll float in the thing. Sorry, women.
Can I say
It was
something
the
about
feminists
this?
who were the
Yes.
Murin with you, white English-speaking feminists earlier. No, all women were the Murin with you with the pilsuig. Almal wat pilsuig was kwaad oor die pilsuig.
That was like mostly sort of. No, there was actually also it was a man, interestingly enough, having a problem with the peel.
It was a man.
Yes, that vandalized the stuff.
He spray painted the work and made me famous by doing that.
But it gebeurde as a man. I thought it was women that made
No.
him ban their work, and I thought you women have got a problem. Jy skyn heilig wat julle sy gaan 'n peel, maar as hulle dit teken dan klaai, dan moan julle daaroor. And it's a thing about patriarchy. I get it. And
So
Yeah, I mean that work. You need to look at it and understand what it's about.
of course.
And
And who you are, and what you're saying there.
yeah, well, the thing is, we had an exhibition earlier on at showing explicit work, and it was in Stellenbosch, and there were a lot of women that were really upset about it, and I thought that was so weird because I thought women are my friends
They're your
because
cohort.
I'm fighting this patriarchal fucking shit from that we had in our upbringing.
And I'll use my sword.
and then yes. Well, the thing is, so all the women that are named there are derivative of men. So it's Wilhelmina or
Okay,
the dochter
of
van
course,
Dominee
of
so
course.
and so.
Yeah,
So-
patriarchy.
Yeah, and the interesting thing was I had a discussion with a critic from art in America when I was in America, and I showed him the work and I discussed and explained to him why I made it. And he just said to me, "This will never work in America. It will never work in America. The feminists will just kill you."
No, I think the dick's too big. You must make it smaller. Excuse me, sir, maar jy weet jy, as ons nou daaroor praat, dan praat ons nou maar daaroor. But that's the interesting thing, this kind heiligheid about what you
Can I-
project into something.
Can I say something about the depiction of women? A few years ago, we wanted to launch like basically the prequel to this book in Johannesburg at the Everard Reed Gallery. It was called The Erotic Drawings of Anton Kannemeyer and the Erotic Drawings of Conrad. And 2 weeks before the exhibition opened, or was supposed to open, one of the people working at the gallery, not even a curator, someone working in finance or admin or something, saw some of the work and then had a massive problem with it and said, okay, well, if you're going to exhibit this, we're going to protest and all
You
hell's
probably
going to
said, if
break
you're going to exhibit this, I'm going to masturbate 4 times a day in my office around the corner and take it down because I'm not going to be working.
So what eventually happened is that the director of the gallery said, if you consider, he basically said he's gonna cancel the exhibition, and the women's thing is like, you cannot have an exhibition like this if you consider what is happening to women today in South Africa. That's what the person said. And I said, considering what is happening to women in South Africa today, there is not a better time than right now to have this exhibition, But it was just sort of, it was no discussion. We just see
But you
explicit
show them
images.
a vagina
Yeah.
and the twice,
Yeah.
nothing. The kop is weg. Go and have a go. Both of you, issues around women, depiction of women. You've had flack. Carlos, have you had any, apart from Winnie and William Nicol, yeah.
No, not really.
Do you avoid sort of, if there is anything, or it's not just something that's on your
No, I mean, I've done a few cartoons dealing with the issues of violence against women. But I mean, my style maybe is less provocative, certainly, than Bitter Comics, and less kind of boundary pushing, perhaps, than Zapiro. So I kind of work in a sort of tributary.
Yeah.
But I can, I can punch hard when I need to. But the issue of cartoonists and women is interesting because I've been asked before why it is that there a small minority of political cartoonists are women. And I've been thinking about that on and off. And I was interested to know what you guys think, because it when women dominate illustration often, that seems to be the larger form is not at all, doesn't follow that pattern at all. And it's something about maybe something about a kind of and this might sound essentialist, an urge to
hit back.
kick someone in the ass
I also
and
think
be
women-
unpleasant
And women
provoke. And
I think
but women do that too, so it's
we
a mystery.
do, but we get caught up in the family. So
Yeah.
what it takes to make satire, which I think I do with my mouth, and if I have a stroke one day, I'll be able to do it with my brain, is that I can see the cartoons. Zapiro and I used to meet a lot and discuss ideas. I'm very visual, but I can't draw. So that's why I thought AI was my savior. I thought, yes, nou gaan ek teken. Ek gaan nou begin fucking teken my eie cartoons. Maar ek wil nie luister nie. So I don't have the talent.
No, but it's not. I don't think that that's the issue with women in terms of satire. There are women satirical writers. There are many women who are comic stand-up comedians.
true.
Brilliant. There are also women who write comics, who draw
That's
comics.
true.
Alison Bechdel and
Of
various
course.
other. There's so
No, there are
many.
many.
There's all of that.
But
I
not
don't
in
think
the
that's. But editorial
yeah.
cartoonists, very, very, very few. No matter where you are in the world, there's some great ones like Anton Mayers, who resigned from the Washington Post because of Jeff Bezos. I'm sure some of you picked up on that.
Yes.
But just in terms of the initial thing we were talking about, depiction of women and all that, it is difficult as a man, and one of the things that I've had to try and figure out over the past maybe decade is the idea of trying as hard as I can not to punch down, but always to punch up, and that is to sometimes get. I sometimes do want to get a sort of a response from people from women or from. I might go to ask someone how would you receive this drawing, because you cannot determine how people will receive something. You can only determine what you want to impart. And so I had a decades long. It is almost 2 decades long sort of debate with women over the issue of the rape metaphor, and some women intractably saying, you as a man and as a white male in this country are not allowed to do a cartoon about a black man, and with the sort of loaded thing of sexuality that white people have imposed on. There's all sorts of things like that, and I tried my best to do the original cartoon, asking certain women for response before I did it, The Rape of Justice, and then carrying on doing it, and also receiving some responses from people who said, and I could hear, I thought on radio programs, black women saying, I'm a rape survivor, and I'm even a gang rape survivor, and I was shocked at the cartoon, but then I looked and saw that you were trying to shock, and you were trying to, I felt that you were trying to show something about the circumstances of the sort of patriarchy or the violent society that we live in, the male-dominated society. So there is a big split in amongst women in terms of that, what I've tried to do with that. And there's some who support and some who don't, and I've had a couple of public debates. So it's a very difficult issue. But in the long run, I still stand by that cartoon and the follow-up ones that I've done. But it's always difficult in terms of. I'll just tell you that when I did that Prophet Muhammad cartoon, and then some people thought I retracted or apologized when I did a cartoon the next week explaining what happened. I got an angry letter from Imam Farid Esak, who said, "Why are you apologizing?" I said, I didn't think I was apologizing. He was angry with me because, as a left-wing progressive imam, he felt so. You're always going to, your audience is they're always going to be the outliers, people who absolutely support no matter how far you go. But there are many people who what I think, I don't know if I speak for all of us to say that people say, now you've crossed the line. And I said, like, which line? And then the next day I knew another cartoon that says something different about attacking someone else. And then the people who supported that cartoon are now telling me I've crossed the line. So that line is very blurred, and that line is very difficult, and it's very nuanced. And one has to just try and keep in touch with one's audience a bit, and also decide who one's drawing for. Is it oneself or the audience or both or what?
And also a country developed. South Africa has moved so much, and kind of memes and all of those, the democratization of technology allows for humor across, I think, all cultures that is really funny. The meme, but it's not art. It's like a lovely mental fart that smells nice. That's what a meme is. But what happens here? So I mean, Carlos, for you, the future is looking a bit unstable at the moment. As for us too, we're all unstable. But it's sad to think that somebody. That space in a cartoon will be missing, because I find a lot of the publications today absolutely humorless. We've become quite humorless. There is a retraction from funny writing because they don't want the audience to be confused between satire and analysis. So one is no longer allowed to be funny or do an upside-down picture because the audience is so confused since COVID. They think they've got a 5G tower in them and they don't know what's going on. So we must now back down so that they can feel comfortable. So it's dangerous, but what you do can never be replicated. And once it goes missing from the publications you read, boycott. Speak up. Because the other thing we can do is find walls of freedom in town, but that takes a long time to do. A huge big cartoon every day on the wall, And your feelings about what you're going to do now? I mean, it's shocking.
I'm not going to pivot because
thank
I
God,
refuse.
everyone's pivoting. Yeah.
I'm going to adapt. No, I'm going to carry on doing my work, and I'll just, I may, pitch ad hoc cartoons to News 24. I still love the people who I worked with.
The people you work with are always nice.
Yeah, it's the.
Some are vegetarians,
Yeah, and it's only cartooning is only was only half of my work routine anyway. So it's not a calamity, but yeah, I have a bit of a fuck you spirit building in me. So
Good.
I'm going to cultivate it.
And the Pretoria Meisie in me is going to it's going to kom ons gaan fucking brand daai gebou af. Kom ons gaan nie na. Let's go burn that building. I told somebody in Mozambique they should burn down the hospital because the government stole the money, and he's, you South Africans are terrible. So it's the only thing that works. People, it's past. We've been here for an hour. We could be here for much longer. I would like you, please, if you can, support these incredible truth sayers, sword swayers. Ja, pielvleggers. Here, dis vir my so mooi. Here, kan 'n mens 'n pielvleg? Ek weet nie. And please encourage other people, because without their voices, I can promise you, you're going to be hit by a turd so bland and so unknowable that you won't even know you've been hit by a turd, and that you need to run. So baie dankie almal dat julle hier was. Baie dankie julle almal for what you do. Thank you. Thank you very